If you're an Apple fan and live in the US, there's a good chance that when you bought your latest iPhone, you assumed it was made in China. It's no secret that almost all of Apple's products are manufactured overseas, which has been the case for decades. But guess what? That isn't actually true. There is one Apple product that can be found being made in America. But because it's such a well-kept secret, very few people know about it or have ever seen it before. In this video, we're going to talk about Apple's top-secret factory located right here in the United States, where they build some special iPhones for very special people. But first, like this video if you love tech and want to hear more about Apple's biggest secrets. Also, stick around until the end, because we have a mystery gift for those who watch until the end. Now let's begin. In January of 2017, an investigative journalist named Ken Klippenstein published an article that would forever change the way we think about Apple manufacturing. He had just gotten his hands on leaked internal documents from a company called Flex, who at the time was Apple's main supplier for assembling MacBooks. The documents revealed that Flex had a secret multi-million-dollar facility in Texas, where they assembled MacBooks and other Apple products. This raised a lot of questions and conspiracies. How could such a large operation be kept a secret for so long? Why did Apple choose to keep it a secret? Why did they stop? These questions were never answered. But what we do know is that this secret factory played a significant role in building iPhones for over a decade, though Apple does not currently manufacture any products in the United States. It was on this way when the iPhone first launched in 2007. Apple's first manufacturing plant outside of Asia opened in their hometown of Cupertino, California in 1980. While it was initially used for building Mac computers as the years went on, it also began building iPads, iPods, iPhones, and various other products. The massive facility employed thousands of people and brought in billions of dollars every year. But in 2014, something changed. With the launch of iOS 8, Apple announced that all future iPhone models will exclusively use a new type of SIM card that would only work with carrier partners. This move forced wireless carriers to begin investing heavily in nationwide infrastructure to support the new standard, which resulted in millions of customers switching to the new LTE network. In fact, by 2016, over 100 million Americans were using these new SIM cards, accounting for nearly half of the country's entire population. This meant that Apple could now sell unlocked iPhones directly to consumers through their online store, without having to worry about whether or not they work with a particular carrier. Suddenly, Apple's retail stores became the single biggest sales channel for iPhones, surpassing even Walmart. To accommodate the shift, Apple closed their manufacturing facilities in California and began shipping them in from China. Although Apple didn't make a public announcement about the closure, rumors suggested that it had to do with rising labor costs in California. However, this was only part of the story. As it turns out, there was much more to the closure than just economics. You see, while Apple had been building iPhones in California since 2007, they never actually built them from scratch. Instead, they simply assembled the phones by putting together parts and components that were shipped to them from all around the world. For example, Samsung supplied the screens and cameras, while Cirrus Logic provided the chips that processed the sound. As a result, there were dozens of different parts and components coming from dozens of different countries. This made it extremely difficult to keep production moving smoothly and on schedule. There were always delays and setbacks, which caused major problems for Apple. For example, in 2013, a fire at a supplier's factory in Taiwan caused a shortage of camera lenses, which in turn caused delays in the iPhone 5 South release. Or in 2014, a labor dispute at a supplier's factory in South Korea caused a shortage of memory chips, which in turn caused delays in the iPhone 6 release. These types of problems were costing Apple millions of dollars every year. So in order to fix it, they decided to move production to a single factory in China, where everything was already built for them. This meant that instead of dealing with dozens of suppliers from all around the world, Apple only had to deal with one supplier in China. It also meant that they no longer had to worry about production delays caused by things like fires and labor disputes. However, this came with a big downside because now if anything went wrong at this one factory in China, it would cause a major problem for Apple. And unfortunately, this is exactly what happened in 2020 when COVID-19 shut down the factory. It took weeks for the factory to reopen, during which time Apple received 0 iPhones. causing massive shortages all across the globe. This taught Apple a valuable lesson about diversifying their supply chain, and that's where our story begins. You see, when the pandemic hit and Apple's supply chain began to crumble, they were forced to find alternative ways to get iPhones into the hands of their customers. And that when they discovered a forgotten facility in Texas that was still owned by Flex and being used for storing iPhones. They quickly reached out to Flex and asked if they could begin using the warehouse for building iPhones instead. Flex agreed, and within months, the warehouse was transformed into a state-of-the-art iPhone factory employing hundreds of workers who were paid top dollar to assemble iPhones. In fact, one insider even reported that the pay was so good it drew in employees from surrounding counties. Although Apple never officially announced the opening of the factory, satellite imagery of the facility seemed to confirm its use in manufacturing. Looking at satellite photos from 2020, we can see multiple rows of cars parked neatly in front of the building. This suggested that the factory was operational and likely manufacturing iPhones. And although we don't know how many iPhones are built here every year, it's estimated that the facility employs hundreds of people, which means that at least several thousand iPhones are built here every day. But there's still one big question that remains. Who are these iPhones for? Well, as it turns out, they aren't just any iPhones. They're special pre-release versions that are used for testing purposes. See, even though Apple makes iPhones available to the public in September and October, the truth is that the phones were actually finished months earlier. After all, it takes several months to design, engineer, and manufacture an iPhone. So that raises the question, where do the engineers test the phones before they're released to the public? Well, as it turns out, they test them in this secret factory in Texas. Once the phones are assembled, they're then sent to Apple's headquarters in Cupertino for final testing and certification. At this stage, Apple's engineers thoroughly test the phones to ensure they meet Apple's standards and are ready for mass production. They also work closely with cellular carriers to ensure that the phones are compatible with carrier networks. If the phones pass the tests, they're then certified and given the green light for mass production. The secret Texas factory plays a critical role in ensuring that Apple's flagship products are thoroughly tested and certified before being released to the public. By testing iPhones in a variety of conditions and environments, Apple's engineers can identify and fix any issues that may arise, ensuring that the final product is reliable, safe, and user-friendly. So while it may come as a surprise to many that Apple still manufactures iPhones in the United States, the truth is that it has always been a part of the process. From the initial assembly of early prototypes to the final testing and certification of pre-release models, the United States has played a critical role in bringing Apple's most iconic products to market. And although we may never know the exact number of iPhones being built here every year, we can appreciate the hard work and dedication of the engineers and technicians who make it happen. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. And if you're curious about what our mystery gift is, all you have to do is watch this video on another channel. We'll see you there.